Hey guys, happy Thursday and welcome to Tea Time with me, Narita. And guess what tea time this is? It's tea time 44. That's super fucking exciting. And it's exciting because I'm all into those angelic synchronicities numbers. And it's exciting that this tea time is 44. And today is 11/22/22. That's so fucking awesome. I wanted actually to do a giveaway today, but it totally went through my mind. Like weeks ago, I was like, oh, on Tea Time 44, I'm gonna do a giveaway, and I totally forgot. But I'm excited. So I'm gonna add Erin in here because we're doing a tea time together. And let me just have her. Let's see. So thank you guys for joining. Hey.
Hi.
Hey! Your window, I love your window. Your window is always so familiar to me since that's what I saw during our classes.
And today's the first day that I've actually had them open. I just closed them to make sure there was no trains, fire trucks, people screaming in the street.
I like the lighting.
Yeah, thank you.
Erin, show me your tea. Cheers.
Oh, cheers!
Cheers. Oh, it's an owl. That's sweet.
I got this mug when I started college, like right when I started college.
Aw, owls have been showing up a lot in my life lately, and I don't know if you believe that when an animal or an insect shows up, there's like a message with it, or like they're trying to tell you something.
I've got a big thing with hawks.
Okay.
I mean, my handle is Sparrowhawk.
I would have never guessed.
My family always called me Sparrowhawk ever since I was like teeny tiny, so that's
Is
right.
there a reason why? Were you...
Well...
Are your energies like related to a hawk?
So my mom used to tell me it's because I was always watching everything like a hawk, just like always observing. And then when I was like in the 9th grade, I got in trouble for fighting. I went to go clean houses with my aunt, and I asked my uncle why Sparrowhawk, because he's the one that gave me that name. And he said because most hawks, when they get their prey, they go and they swoop them up like this, and then sparrowhawks actually prey on other birds, and they punch other birds out of the sky.
Is that what you did when you got into that fight?
You know, I like to think it was just. I certainly didn't pick fights back then.
That's funny. So
I've softened over the years.
You're like, I've changed. We have though, right? Like I'm totally sure. You become a meditation teacher. Yeah. So I'm sure in those spaces you're more like, let me take a breather. Hold on.
I'm gonna make sure this is working. Are you only seeing my forehead? So I can adjust this.
Yeah, you're a little... Let's see. Can you put it a little bit more down?
You wouldn't believe this setup.
There you go. It changes too when you're doing a live. When you're by yourself, it's like this, and then...
Sorry.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
There you go. Yeah. Did you want to get started with our 5-minute grounding?
For those that can stand it, let's do a quick 5-minute just to help get some of these first time tea time nerves out. And since we're going to be talking a lot about mindfulness, meditation, let's show you what we're talking about.
Yes. And thank you, Erin, so much for coming on here and doing a tea time with me. Such a pleasure.
So much for having me. It's always fun to hang out, like communicate with you, and so to join and actually hang out over tea time, it's really exciting. Just we have a lot in common, and it's been so great to just like bounce things off each other and be like, hey, did you see this? And just have somebody that's on the same interest.
Yes, I agree.
So talk about ramdass and ramdev, all that stuff. So it's really...
And I have questions. I did look up some videos, so yeah. Okay, but I'll go for it. You can totally guide the...
So for those of you who are able, if you want to take a seat, a comfortable position, either cross-legged on the floor, or you can kneel with some pillows underneath of you for support. or you can sit in a chair. If your feet are able to touch the ground, your feet on the ground. In any of these positions, you don't want anything to be supporting your back if you can help it. And we want to take our shoulders, bring them back and drop them behind us. And so create that length in your spine. Take your chin and just tuck it slightly so that it's parallel with the floor to create that length in the spine. Sometimes it helps to imagine an invisible string kind of pulling our heads up to the ceiling. And we say upright but not uptight, or not too tight but not too loose. And then take your hands and drop them wherever they fall naturally, either on your knees or on your thighs. Your fingertips towards the ground, since this is a grounding practice. And for this practice, we're going to keep our eyes open because we are cultivating a sense of wakefulness today, and it'll help for an easier transition into our everyday life when we're done here. And, you know, if you get an itch on your nose or your knee, if you can stand to move through it or to breathe past it, that's for the best. Otherwise, you know, you shouldn't be in any unbearable pain because this is a gentle practice. So the first step includes taking your seat, which we just went over, of that seated position. The next step is to place your attention on your breath and notice what arises without any bias or judgment. And then third, when we notice that our mind has wandered from our breath, just label your thoughts as thinking and go back to your breath. So we're going to sit for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Hopefully that wasn't too terribly awkward for those who weren't able to join us in meditation. Awkward, I like my middle name.
I was gonna put in the comments too, by the way, we're meditating, but it's like, nope, I'm meditating. Maybe they'll know. Yeah. So I would thank you for that.
Sure.
So
My pleasure.
calming, peaceful. Takes me back to when we were doing our classes and we'd have to do this for a little bit longer.
Is it weird that when I label my thoughts thinking, sometimes I hear it in our teacher's voice?
That's pretty cool though. Like if you hear David saying it in the back of your mind, it's like, oh, he is literally your teacher. Even in the spiritual, meditation, like he's the one that pops up.
His voice tends to be more stable than my own at times.
More
Can we just take any voice we want, and as long as we're labeling our thoughts thinking?
Like my thoughts, yeah.
Label my thoughts thinking with like a Mickey Mouse voice.
If anything, that make me want to go more into my thought. Like, oh, is that Mickey Mouse saying that's my thoughts?
What's Mickey Mouse doing?
You know what? Knowing me, I'd probably be like, that's a mouse. What does a mouse mean? Like, why is it showing up in my meditation practice?
Where is the mouse when it's not being present?
Yeah.
If Goofy has enough or Pluto has enough.
That's too funny.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Totally good. To start, oh man, okay, so there's so many. I love a good laughter, so it's so nice to be laughing together and just together. So I'm moving forward because I just
Sorry.
Okay. Should we do like another 5 minutes? It's okay.
All right, don't open with a joke.
No, I love it. Oh man, my ears are getting red. Okay, so moving forward to meditation, since we just got out of a really nice 5-minute meditation. I would love for you to share that passion of yours of meditation and mindful meditation, and I know that you started your business this year and how that is relating and how you're bringing that into your own business.
Sure.
Because I know that's one of the first things that made me super curious to talk to you is when we were in the chat, when we were like talking and you were sharing how you wanted to bring meditation to the first responders and to those stress environments. And I was like, that's such a good idea. Like,
so, we graduated from Dharmamoon and Tibet House mindfulness meditation teacher training program in February. And 22 I officially got my LLC for Open-Heart-Resilient Minds.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. And so I've slowly but surely been working on building that. Before finding Dharmamoon, I was in social work for the past 10 years. Now I do it very part-time currently. Mm-hmm. But I always in child welfare. So I started out in case management when I was just 22 years old, for kids that have been removed, for families that were at risk for having a removal, and trying to get families reunified. So, I was there in the thick of it at just 22 years old.
And that's very young too. How did you, I'm so curious because I'm doing something similar now. How did you think about it as a 22-year-old, or how did you process
back then
those spaces?
It was very much a God thing for me. It was so taking things way back when I was in college. I did this meditation about like manifesting with the angels.
Okay.
And at the end of it was kind of like writing down what you see for yourself. And I was really thinking I was going to be majoring in communications, working at a radio station, or I was going to leave school and become an ultrasound technician. It was just, those were the two options. I never heard of social work at all. And the only message that came out of that was protect children. Okay. And I was like, that wasn't on the list. That wasn't one of the options.
You're like, crap.
And I actually used to teach preschool on Sundays for my church when I was in college. And I volunteered with somebody who I guess was a social worker in child welfare. And she's like, don't ever do it. It's terrible. It's thankless. Like, it's awful. She's like, don't ever do it. And something in me was like, ding, 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 ding.
Like, still want to do it. Yeah.
So I ended up getting into social work. And it from the very beginning and all throughout, it was very much where I was supposed to be.
Okay.
You know, and towards the end, and we'll talk about compassion fatigue and burnout, which is very, very common. You know, it's like, what was I thinking? And why would I do that to myself? You don't have to be a martyr, Erin, but that's really not the truth. The truth is I was supposed to be there.
Like it was meant to be.
Yeah. I mean, you have people in those fields doing those roles who have a passion for it, who want to be there, because there is no amount of money in the entire world to pay you to stay in it. And, you know, and you have to do the absolute best you can, you know, in the most stressful circumstances. So I got into it at 22, pretty young, and went from case management to investigations. I did forensic interviewing for 2.5 years. And I'm like, okay, I need to go live in the woods. And I went hiking for 1.5 months, or 1 month and 3 days.
What do you mean you went hiking for a whole month? Like you just went camping? Like
actually, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, just the state of Michigan.
Oh, okay, yes.
2017, so I sold everything I owned.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Had my cat stay with a friend, and started August 1st and finished September 3rd. So,
oh my God, hells yeah. Wait, did you do like the whole trail?
So the whole trail is
like from San Diego to Mexico to Canada.
Mexico to Canada. So I just did the state of Oregon. So I started in Cascade Locks in Oregon, and then went southbound and ended up in Ashland, Oregon.
Wow. Okay, that's super awesome.
Yeah. And so after that, I ended up into Iowa, and we can talk about that another time. That's a whole other story on its own. But upon coming to Iowa, and for the most part of 5 years, I have been supporting foster and adoptive families, doing licensing for people that want to be foster or adoptive families, and also relatives. And I've always been passionate about it. You know, there's no question that, you know, I know what I'm doing when it comes to that field. But after so long, and, you know, you hear so many heartbreaking stories of, you know, for some people, it's the repetitive, you know, hearing other people's traumas and taking those on when you're licensing a family. For me, it was more so, you know, there are people who let others down. And I don't want to go into too much detail of specifics of anything like that, but you see enough of that, and it really started to affect me quite a bit. You know, I got to a place where I felt very out of control over my emotions. What I'll say, like what I joke about now is like I've lost my poker face in a way.
Which in a way is also like a blessing, because you're showing up more authentically with however you're feeling in that moment. It
is. And so after, you know, almost 5 years of that, I was like, okay, it's time to step away completely. And so I went and worked for a financial group for a little bit. That didn't take me long to step away from that. It just wasn't for me. And then I started bartending for the elderly full time.
Okay.
At a place called Edgewater in West Des Moines, and I'm their full-time bartender Monday through Friday, and I love it so much.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
honestly, it's like the warm and fuzzy of social work without so much of the heaviness, and I get to have a lot of fun with them, and they come to see me. They're always happy because I'm the one pouring their booze, and so we have something called Wine at 5. It's kind of like tea time, but in real life.
Ooh. You're gonna have to bring an Instagram live there.
I could. I really do. I could host a whole talk show and just have every one of them as my honestly, they are so remarkable and inspiring, and they've really changed my life in a lot of ways that I don't think they'll ever really understand. But at 5 o'clock, they all swarm, and I just grab red wine, white wine. I grab multiple bottles, and they're so amazed that I make it's the circus, it's the errand show, and I run around and I pour all their white wine and their red wine. They're like, how does she know what we like? I just know. And they're like, they're so amazed because by now I know one of them drinks. Yeah. And they're just like always in awe. And I'm like,
so they probably, I'm so sure they look forward to seeing you. They look forward to having you come in.
Honestly,
because I'm so sure you do more than just that. Like, yes, like what they like and you're ready to pour it, but I'm so sure you bring such a bright energy to them.
It's not about the drinks. It's not for me. Like, it's really not about the drinks. It's about the connection and that connection piece of it goes into living a longer, more fulfilled life as well. And that's sort of why we do the Wine at 5, is to get people out of their, spaces and bring them all together. And they love their wine. But really, for me, it's become so much about service.
Okay. Like serving,
I love to, and it's not just about customer service. I want to do a good job and be a great server or bartender. For me, it's about, I want them to feel like I am there for them right now in that moment.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of intentional, or it is intentional.
It is.
Like, it's not the job itself.
Yeah, they feel it, and honestly, it's been healing. I can honestly say it's been healing to me and we can talk more about compassion fatigue and burnout.
Yeah.
It's helped open my heart wide open, cracked it wide open after kind of feeling like it closed up for a bit. After, we feel so deeply, and after so long, I started internalizing those stories that I was hearing and seeing day in and day out. So to come over here, it just took a crowbar and just cracked my heart wide open, and they feel it, and then they send it back to me, and we're just
it's like a
all this love between they're like, they tell me and it's really insane. And I think sometimes it can be probably a little bit annoying to some of my other coworkers. Erin, you take such good care of us. You're so present with us. We just love you so much. So there's a lot of positive feedback there that it helps energize me all the more. And it's been really special. And I actually taught my very first mindfulness meditation class there at Water. And, we're talking maybe late 70s to the mid 90s.
Okay.
And I had more than 35 people show up.
Nice.
It was really, really remarkable.
Oh my God. We're gonna have to talk about that too, because I'm so curious as to the energy or the space that you felt as you were guiding meditation with them.
And I talked it up a lot, because sometimes they'll be like, are there any smells gonna be there?
Wait, smells?
With the music, because they do have meditation programs that happen there. I actually got to participate in an hour-long sound bath.
Okay.
Just by being an employee there before, and it was great. Okay. So they've had some exposure to a few different styles of meditation, and I'm like, this is the least woo woo it could ever be.
Woo woo.
I'm like,
That's
we're
so funny.
closing our eyes here.
Yeah, that's so funny. When I started doing the meditations at the coffee shop, the owner also asked me the same thing, like, are you going to bring your candles or your feathers? And I guess somebody had been there before that was more Wicca, I guess, tradition, and he had some experiences with it and he didn't really like it. And I'm like, no, it's just like breath work. Like, I'm going to come in with like soft music and whatever comes through, but it's just breath work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually, very surprised, and I was shocked, and it's one cool thing about it is it's breaking down stereotypes all the time for me about aging. And like, I'm telling you, like, I've got my biggest party girls are over 90. Like, they're so energized and they're vibrant and they're
it's like a whole other way of looking at the elders, or looking at how you could, because I think we have like this perception or this idea here in the Western world where when you're older, you end up being kind of like locked up in a room or locked up in a house or in a nursing home, and you just wait till you die, you know? And I remember the first time that shifted for me is when I was abroad, and it's like, oh my God, there's older people who are biking at like midnight.
Yeah.
We would never see that back at home.
Yeah, and there's residents that I never would have guessed who are like, oh, well, so and so here, he actually studied at Maharishi Vedic City doing transcendental meditation, which that's actually in Fairfield, Iowa, is the Vedic city. And I was like, no way.
Oh, so you get to learn from them even in that space of meditation.
We have one who I think is a bishop with hospice, and they did like I want to say an 80-hour retreat of mindfulness meditation.
Wow.
So there are quite a few who have had at least some taste of meditation or some experience, but to have that many people turn out was like the biggest honor that I ever have experienced thus far, I think. And one thing that meant so much to me to be able to talk about is its impact on Alzheimer's and dementia. And I didn't know all of the science necessarily leading up to that until before the class, somebody had asked me, you know, can it help Alzheimer's and dementia? I was like, I needed to do a little bit more studying, and so I did. And what we know is that while stress isn't like the sole cause of dementia or Alzheimer's, it certainly has an impact on how early Alzheimer's or dementia onsets. And the level of stress experience can also determine how it presents itself, how severe it can be. And you know what we know about mindfulness meditation, the goal isn't to eliminate all stress, because sitting for 20 minutes or longer can be pretty stressful at times.
Yeah.
And, you know, however, when we do it consistently, it shrinks our amygdala. It's, you know, I love what David, our teacher, said, you know, it's not rocket science, but it is neuroscience.
Yeah.
And so it really shrinks our amygdala over time, which is responsible for that fight or flight response. You know, and once upon a time, did we need that fight or flight response when we were running from tigers and hunting for our food and had to watch our back? Yeah, we did, but we don't need it all the time. And so to be able to explain to them with a prolonged process and this impact on the brain, this can help prevent, you know, at least work towards, in conjunction to a number of other things, towards preventing Alzheimer's and dementia. And that hit, you know, so close to home for so many of them. Some of them who are either, they may know that they've been diagnosed, or that they may know, you know, that it could be coming in the near future. Many of them have a loved one who either had it and since passed, or who is currently going through it. And so, you know, in any population, whether it's doing meditation, you know, with the homeless community, or what I hope to bring to social workers and first responders and anybody in a high stress environment or to the elderly is that this is a gentle practice. That's probably one of my most favorite aspects of all of it, is really emphasizing how important it is to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. So going back a little bit with what you're saying, because I'm trying to understand it for myself, and when it comes to concepts of like the neuroscience, sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to understand. Like I'll be reading a book and I have to read it like 10 times. So stress is not the main component of Alzheimer's, right?
It's but not the cause, but it's a contributor.
Okay, so then with mindfulness meditation, you do reduce, or you can reduce your stress level, so you can reduce the component of it being or increasing or adding to the Alzheimer's, right?
Mm-hmm. So one of the residents actually brought me a book called The Alzheimer's Solution. And so it really covers my rate of areas that can affect, its onset, when it onsets, and how severe it is when it does come on. And so there's a bunch of contributors that can, or ways to essentially be proactive. While we don't have, there's no cure for it, there are
the answer
to be proactive as possible. There's diet. There is
sleep. I heard sleep was like a big one.
Sleep is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of it. There's diet. There's your sleep. Maintaining social interactions. And so I'm like, and especially watching people at where I bartend and the social component, I'm like, man, if this is what's keeping them like so vibrant and young, I really got to overcome my social anxiety if I want to live a longer, more fulfilled life. And stress is a big part of it too. And how much are we using our brains? A lot of people immediately go to Sudoku or but it can be so much more than that. It can be journaling or puzzles. And
so I have a question too with that too. Like, so when it's an offset already or an onset, does meditation still help with it not getting so severe, or is it kind of like when they're already diagnosed or it's active, it just has like basically its own, it takes a toll, I guess. I don't know if I'm asking correctly.
No, I get what you're saying. There's actually a myth of when we talk about myelination, our brain's neurons able to make those synapses, and I'm not a neurologist, so I could be butchering the technology a little bit here.
Go for it.
When we talk about our brain's ability to make these connections, the myth is that once they've already gotten to this point, they're not going to be able to go to essentially
rewire, I guess.
Right. And so far from a lot of the lectures that I've listened to and documents that I've read, that is a myth. However, it just, the older we are in general, the older our brains are, it will just take more consistency, more time and effort. So, we already know if we're only meditating 5 minutes a day or 5 minutes once a week, we're not going to see those,
it's good.
Even at our current age.
Yeah.
And so the older we are, it's going to take a lot more effort as far as, are we doing it 20 minutes a day, every day? That's going to be what really makes the difference.
It does seem like I always tell like my life coaching clients where it's kind of like going to the gym, right? You can't expect to come once a month or to do the work a week and see results or see the fruit of it.
And like we've been taught, there are many benefits to mindfulness meditation.
Yeah.
None of which come to fruition if we don't practice.
So even with that too being said, like I don't know too much about like Alzheimer's and the brain, the way the brain, the diseases of the brain when you're older. I've heard the sleep because I saw a documentary on Sleepless America, and I was like, oh crap, I didn't know like sleep was that. I mean, it seems like it's obvious, but at the same time, you don't think about it too much. Yeah. But I do believe that brain our wires, or we can rewire our brain. Like, I totally believe that, like, at my core. And the thing that pops up for me too is like psychedelics. Like, that happens when people heal through psychedelics all the time, where your brains are already rewired or connected or not connected, and going through that psychedelic journey, healing journey, connects your brain and so many different areas in your life.
Communicate are like, oh, hi, you can taste color, what?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, because I've gone through that experience myself, and because I see it and I hear stories and I read up on it, and there's such a core belief that, oh, it is possible. But of course it takes work. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, I think so many of us can be thankful that, you know, while maybe not quick enough, some of the stigma is starting to fall away. More and more of that research comes through, and so I look forward to seeing, you know, where that leads. But I can kind of talk about other subjects as well, but just lastly on the Alzheimer's component, it is, and I have so much more to learn on the subject, of course, but you know, one thing that brought me a lot of hope is I was recently listening to a lecture by Ramdev, Dale Borgholm. Borgholm? But, you know, in terms of, you know, supporting people who are near death, how do you support them if they have Alzheimer's, or help them to live a more conscious life prior to their death if they have Alzheimer's? And his example was somebody that had a stroke and was, you know, mostly in an unresponsive state, you know, kind of like a coma. But yet they still understood that their husband was having an affair with the nurse. That became clear. But that was, so they were kind of still hanging on to life despite, you know, medically would have been said. But in Ramdev communicating with that client, and having her husband explain to them, yes, I have other needs, and I have, you know, fallen in love with this nurse, but I love you, and I will be here to take care of you and support you nonstop until your last breath. And then they were able to let go. So Ramdev's point was, you know, it seems that even though someone doesn't appear all there, that they can still hear you. So, you know, I'm not
like they're still present, they're still aware,
or maybe at least a part of them is. So, you know, I don't know the entire science behind it, but I think if, say, I was to have another meditation at the senior living community and had some come who have Alzheimer's, it's hopefully maybe they'll, even for just a little bit, know to focus on their breath. And there's different methods that are used for some who are like doing it with a visual presentation, having like the light go in take a reminder each time, take a deep breath in, take a deep breath out, take a deep breath in. And so maybe some of it will help or go through. But, you know, above all else, I let people know that if nothing sticks, you know, if you're really not into meditating, I'm not going to force you to be into meditating, but if anything in a way at all, please be gentle with yourself. Have compassion for yourself. And, you know, and I say with that prolonged practice, whether it was for social work, burnout and compassion fatigue, or for my own relationships or my own negative self-talk, that prolonged practice, it creates a space in between the thought, in between the trigger,
the reaction.
And so in that space, you can then decide to have compassion for yourself and be gentle with yourself.
Victor, I forgot his last name. The author, and I think he was a scientist that wrote, oh man, he was a Holocaust survivor.
Frankel?
Yes, yeah. That's the first time that I ever heard. He has a quote about how between the space between the thought and the reaction is space, and there lies, I forgot exactly what he said, but it stuck to me. And when I started doing meditation, it's like, oh, when I'm meditating, I'm creating that space to be bigger and bigger. So I'm less reactive and more still, or whatever it is, like more peaceful, more compassionate. It's different when I show up for myself and with others. But there's so much questions too, like to ask when it comes to even was it a podcast or interview that you just heard of somebody still being present?
That was a lecture.
A lecture.
Yeah, so that was within, he's got a workshop for it's the Living and Dying Project. I would definitely encourage anyone who listens now or in the future, please go look it up, because it's really a beautiful thing.
Yes.
And that was part of a workshop called Conscious Living and Conscious Dying.
Okay. What do you think that it is in that moment when the person who is alive, right, is looking at their loved one and they're laying there and they don't seem to be alive? What do you think it is that's the presence of that person laying there that's keeping them aware or present, or I guess knowing that there's other stuff going on outside of their body?
I think it's, part of it is, like say in a hospital, they're treating the body, or we go to visit somebody and we don't have that much of a background or understanding. We see, oh, here's a dying person.
Yeah.
Or here's a person in a coma, but we're not thinking of, oh, that's Jennifer, who is very funny and quirky and loves to joke and be told jokes and loves poetry.
Okay.
And so I think,
they're just looking at the body.
There. They are just also, experiencing humanity.
Yeah.
And stuff that, will happen to many of us, potentially.
Yeah.
Depending on the circumstances.
Yeah, as you were saying that, or what pops up for me, and I'm totally thinking out loud right now, right? Like just whatever arises, is how even our bodies still know. I totally agree with you, how we do look at the people in that space as just bodies at some point. But also the body who's going through that experience, there's like an energy, I think, or like that soul or that higher self that is also still very much present. And I think that's maybe the thing that knows of what's going on outside. But I also think like our bodies know, even if you're in that space and there's maybe like a little bit of a disconnection with your body. I don't know. Like I wonder.
Almost like one foot in, one foot out.
Yeah. Like you feel something. I don't know. Yeah.
When we talk about, who is the one doing the thinking?
Yeah.
It's almost like the one that's the one that knows.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know, but that's the one I know.
That reminds me of, it's like Michael Singer.
I'm still trying to figure that one out.
So I can't even figure it out right now, and I'm still like active and moving and alive, fully alive. Yeah, the witnesser. So, okay, I wanted to really talk about like compassion fatigue before we end our tea time or before we run out of time. Because I know you mentioned doing a lot of social work in your early 20s and like moving out of it. And just, yeah. You're right. Not moving out of it, moving out of maybe like the system way in that space, but more towards your own way. That's the way that I see it. So what is compassion fatigue? Because even as you're sharing your stories, I just started a job a couple months ago, and it's what you're sharing. I'm listening to many stories from my own clients, but also from like other therapists that I work in. And I've listened to it before, on TV, like documentaries, but it hits so different when you're in the field working and when it's your clients sharing it to you. Yeah. And a little bit, I think it was before I had clients, I remember thinking like, I wonder how much it's going to affect me and the person that I am as being such an optimistic, positive person. And it did a little bit, like the other day I couldn't sleep at night because I kept thinking about what my client was saying. And I'm like, oh man, like I think this is what they mean, like you're bringing work home and it's affecting you, because I couldn't sleep.
I think bringing your work home and letting it affect you is what, if you don't learn to curb, it can lead to compassion fatigue. And I think, you know, when we talk about compassion fatigue, it goes hand in hand with burnout. And burnout is like, you know, we're so empathetic, but then opposed to just, you know, feel it, being able to empathize, we're then internalizing that person's story or story after story, that internalizing it. Okay. And that looks, you know, over time, it's like it makes self-care all that much more difficult, or it makes that fight or flight on all the time because we're so used to being stressed out constantly. But with compassion fatigue, I have some evolving thoughts on it. You know, me being very empathetic all the time. And yes, I can say I think I certainly have internalized when I, you know, probably should have asked for help a lot sooner. But what it feels like, it's, for me, it feels like I felt so much that I can't handle any more. No more feeling, no more feeling, and then wanting, almost like putting up a wall. But then our teachers say, like, compassion fatigue, that's like a myth. It's not the result of your being filled with too much compassion. It's your heart is just so open
that you're taking on their own pain, like their own suffering.
Yeah. And it's almost, but at the same time, it almost, when I compare the state I was in before taking a step back, I can say I was so caught up in the story of it all that there just wasn't that separation so much of where their stories end and where my help begins, and where, you know, where I'm separate from that.
So it was kind of like enmeshed.
So enmeshed, yes. That's a great way to put it. But noticing the difference when I'm, say, with my residents, when I'm bartending, oh, that's what it feels like when my heart is busted wide open. I would love to be able to bring that into every social work related interaction. So I physically, nearly visually, see the difference.
Yeah.
Here's the now this guarded, standoffish, kind of like wilty heart versus rainbows, butterflies. It's a love party.
I love that. It's a love party.
See that difference, you know.
Yeah.
Bringing mindfulness back into it. It's, hey, let's just go back to our breathing and be here now.
Yeah.
Opposed to, no, I'm in the suffering, I'm in the pain, I'm there with them. That happened, you know, that happened and it was so bad. I'm over there.
Yeah.
Opposed to being here now.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question too with that too.
It's being in a lack of presence.
Okay. So it's what you're saying is like getting, I don't know if stuck is like the right word, but being so revolved around the story behind it. Because I could maybe see myself in that space where there's a lot of why, or I don't understand that mom or those parents, or wow, you know. And I try to, like, I don't know if you follow Baba too much, Ramdass's guru. Yeah, okay. But I always try to, before my sessions and after, there's a story where Ramdass talks about being in India and he goes to the city to get his visa and he sees like suffering and there's people like in hunger and people asking for money, and he goes to Baba and he's like, I don't get it. Like there's so much suffering. And he's so softly and gently, it sounds like I can hear it or I am there. And he's just like, don't you see it's all perfect? And I try to remember that and feel it within myself before and after sessions. And what you're saying about also being in the moment, like with my clients, whenever I'm with them, I try to do at least one activity where it's like, let's be in the moment. And last time it was raining and I told my client like, hey, let's go outside and feel the rain on our skin. But I could see, and I think I'm something that I'm still probably working on because I'm fairly new to this field, working in this way, where it's like I don't want to bring it home with me and let it affect me where I don't sleep at night or where I'm burnt out, because it's also very rewarding to be able to be there for a little bit and to share these tools that I hope will make a huge difference as they grow older, or that will make a little impact right now in their little lives. Because I'm working with little kids, but I guess like going back to your question, because I had a question of what would it look like compassion fatigue is like taking it out in and not suppressing it, it sounds like. But then
and lack of self-care. You're not doing your self-care properly. You're not putting yourself first. You're so caught up in putting others before you that you've gotten too much neglect on yourself that it's harder to get to the top of the mountain when you've got all these boulders falling on you.
So what does the other way look like? The way where
I want to.
You know what I mean? I feel like I can say one word and you're gonna be like, I know what you mean.
What is the in here? What is the cure-all? Don't have cure-all. You should probably go to therapy and have a therapist.
Yeah.
I would. I spent a long time, saying, I know I need to go to therapy. I know I should be in therapy. I knew, Yeah. So actually, I think anybody in any helping profession,
I agree,
should do that. A meditation practice where you can go feel the rain on your skin.
Yeah.
I think therapy can help meditation and meditation can help therapy.
Yeah.
And when we talk about mindfulness and our consistent practice of it, a big part of the component is, that precision. Okay. So when we think of precision and mindfulness, it's not just labeling being disciplined enough to label our thoughts thinking, but it's also being disciplined enough, label your thoughts thinking, and then go back to your breath. So the way that you went and felt that rain on your skin, that's like the discipline of, okay, we're not going to go into the story right now. Let's just be here now. Yeah. In our breath. Let's be present in this moment right now. So that's one thing that I oftentimes feel like if I got into mindfulness meditation the way I'm into it now, like maybe I'd still be able to be on the front lines. Okay. I don't know. I don't think it's really meant for me at this point because I'm just kind of, expanding in other ways. Yeah. But that's so
true though. Like wherever you're at in life right now, it's totally meant to be the way that it is, and the way that you're serving to the elderly and like your business. It's like all of that too came through being burnt out and being in the field that way.
I think it'll allow me to be of service to others for many, many years to come, hopefully. And that's why part of why my business it's called Open Hearts and Resilient Minds, because we can continue in these high stress environments as long as we're able to come back into that present moment and have compassion for us, for ourselves when we're not in the present moment, and acknowledge those things and say it's okay, but we're all working on it. But the other thing I wanted to mention, and it's an example that when I was taking an interviewing and recording course in college, my teacher said, when you are home at night, and, when you leave your office each day, intentionally, lock your file drawer, lock your office, or even if you're working from home, visually in your mind, lock up that office and put the key away. And then when you're in bed, and those thoughts of what could I have done differently? How do I help this person? Or, oh, it's just all so sad. Use that discipline that we learn from our meditation and say, do I really want to drive all the way back to the office, grab my key out and open the door and go in there right now?
Like, no, actually not really. I'm going to stay, I'll open it up tomorrow.
I really want to get my clothes on and drive all the way there and open that file drawer back up?
Yeah, I get it.
Let's didn't save me. That story that I've never forgot, it didn't save me. I would like, you know, and like what you said in regards to Neem Karoli Baba and saying, don't you see, it's all perfect. And crazy that you say that, because I've listened to Ramdass say that at least twice this week. Until that.
Such a... yeah.
But yeah, I think going back to that, I think if we're going to exercise some precision and utilize our mindfulness practice, it's going to take us a long way into, you know, cultivating that discipline, that stability, clarity, and resilience of our minds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just keep feeling on your skin, or like, you know, oh yeah, thinking.
Yeah. Even with the breath too, it's a reminder. With the breath too, it's like a reminder. What I've noticed, like when I do it, it's like, oh, I'm right there. Right here.
I'm right here.
Right here.
I'm not over there. I'm like, their story's not my story. I'm right here right now. I'm right here. So
yeah.
It's, you know, I don't have all the answers, but I'm down to practice, and
well, it's also so nice to talk to others who are also practicing, you know, or it's so nice to come together in a conversation, and because the things that we've learned, like through books, through our classes, they come through when we're basically in life, like in our careers and our relationships, and it's so nice to talk to, right, like another person who's done the course, who's done the work, and be like, oh yeah, like I've used this tool from that podcast on this life experience, and let me tell you how it worked, or let me tell you how I still got caught in my head, but I'm gonna try again. So it's so nice to,
you know, and like one thing that, and it's funny because we pay attention to a lot of the same teachers, and you know, I think of all of these teachers as beloved teachers, but I'm starting to forget who said it originally, because they all tell each other's stories as well. But I think it was, you know, Ramdass that said, you know, if you're a son of a bitch and you get enlightened, you're an enlightened son of a bitch. Like, so, you know, and Ramdeb, who's like, you know, meditating for 60, 70 years, and I'm still neurotic as I ever was.
Oh, yeah.
but now I'm okay with it.
I love when he says that, because there's so much authenticity where it's like, oh, you're still human. But now you just accept it, and there's no resistance towards it.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing I realized the other day, and it's worth mentioning since we've been talking about the compassion fatigue and the solutions, which that's really kind of a convoluted word in some ways. But so I still do social work part-time, and which is doing home studies, supporting foster and adoptive families. But I have a coworker that I just recently met. Mind you, I'm like barely in the office, and she's 22. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's like a mirror reflection of you?
I mean, she seemed totally she seemed really okay. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that far.
Did you see parts of you, though, her being 22?
The fact that she was 22, I was like, wait. Well, she looks very young, too. So I'm like, I was young once.
Oh.
And then I'm like, I got into social work when I was like that.
Like a baby.
And, you know, and I learned I still get triggered, at least in the realm of child welfare. I still get triggered, but I notice it, and I have this space to have compassion for myself and say, oh, I'm noticing, where are you feeling that? And I can feel it. I'm like, oh, I feel it in here. When I hear, you know, my coworkers talking about this or that, oh, you're feeling this, and I can feel it here, and it's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
You know, like
I'm like thinking.
You know, even what you're saying about coworkers too, because I realized that I've also told myself I'm not going to accept that. Because I was talking to another therapist, another coach, and just sharing a little bit of like, oh, this is going on, it's affecting me. And one of the therapists was like, oh, you're going to get numb to it after a while. And she's been in the field for years. And immediately when she said that, in my head, I'm like, I'm not accepting that. like totally not accepting that. And then this other girl, the other coach, was like, and I think I haven't really talked to her, but I think she's spiritual too. And she was like, oh, she's like, just go in there and be a channel. And that resonated with me. And I'm like, yes, like I do that with my life coaching sessions. I can still do it when I show up to these kids.
That's a lot better advice than the original.
Yeah, I was like, which I've heard, right? It's those things where it's like I've heard before on TV, on documentaries, but it's so different when you're working with them and they're telling you right there.
When I tried my hand, which at one point I said, oh, I would rather be on the street, you know, without anything than go back to investigations. And then when I was like, well, maybe I can do it in the Midwest. I mean, it's the Midwest.
It's different.
And then I was like, no, I can't do it. And then I said to some of my coworkers who had been there for a very long time, they're like, how do you do it? They're like, we drink and we have no soul. I was like, oh.
Not accepting that.
Like, oh, that's not going to work for me.
Exactly. That's not going to work for me.
Go.
Exactly. In that moment, it's like, no. That's your experience. It's cool. But I'm going to have to end the tea time. My niece is on her way, and I don't want her to, like, knock on the door, and yeah. So. But it was so nice to have this conversation. And before we leave, let me know how people can find you. Where can they find you, look for you?
My email is erin@openandresilient.com. My website is Open and Resilient. That's for Open Hearts and Resilient Minds, LLC. Website still in progress. I just opened it up in February, but I'm still learning. Soon I'm going to have a workers only Zoom that I will post on the website. And I'll continue to branch out.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'll keep everyone posted.
Yay! And I'll put your tags in the bio.
Yeah, I have Instagram as Open and Resilient.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. We'll totally stay in touch. I love you. So it's so nice to have a conversation with you. Much love. And thank you guys for joining. Oh yeah, Ibrahim, before we leave, Ibrahim said, I like to do a cleansing ritual before I enter my house to let others' energy that is not mine. Yeah, that's a nice cleansing. Yeah. I think about like the shower. When you're showering, use the shower as well. Let go of the energy.
Like, definitely, even if you don't feel dirty, take a shower right after.
Yeah.
Wash your clothes.
Like, I'm saying. Love and light. Love and light. Okay, much love. Thank you guys for showing up. Bye.